Coming up on Arirang News, South Korean automakers Hyundai and Kia report a big rise in sales in the United States compared to a year ago. In June, sales were up for Hyundai by 19% year-on-year and for Kia by even more. At the Olympics, the South Korean women are heading to the volleyball semifinal with a surprise win over Turkey. Women's golf has begun too, a sport in which Korea dominates at the professional level. And South Korea reports more than 1,700 new coronavirus cases as the authorities plan to update the distancing measures. Vaccine reservations start tonight for around 2 million people living outside the greater Seoul area. It's 5 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. Sales at Korea's biggest automaker, Hyundai Motor, were down last month in terms of the global market overall. But in the U.S., they were up 19% from a year earlier, an even bigger on-year increase for Hyundai's affiliate Kia. Min Soo-kyun reports.
Hyundai Motor America reported another month of solid sales in July. It sold 68,500 vehicles in the U.S. last month, up 19% from a year earlier. This marks the company's fifth consecutive month of double-digit growth in car sales. July's gains were largely due to strong demand for eco-friendly vehicles. Sales of eco-friendly cars jumped almost 400% to account for 12% of the company's total retail sales in the U.S. Senior Vice President in charge of national sales, Randy Parker, said this was because their diversified and compelling lineup of cars met consumers' transportation needs. Hyundai Motor's affiliate, Kia Corporation, also reported strong sales. It extended record sales for the fifth straight month, selling over 70,000 vehicles, up 34% on-year. Its multi-purpose vehicle, the Carnival, delivered its highest sales ever, while the K5, Sportage, and Telluride all saw their highest monthly sales record for July. Hyundai and Kia, together the world's fifth largest car maker by sales, sold a total of 138,599 vehicles in the U.S. last month, up more than 28,000 units from a year ago. Min Soo-kyun, Arirang News.
Data show a big jump in spending online in South Korea compared to a year ago, as the pandemic led to a rise in food delivery. In June, according to Statistics Korea, online shopping transactions were up 23.5% to some $14 billion. Deliveries of prepared meals were up 57% on year, and groceries 36%. More than 70% of transactions in June were done via smartphone. South Korea's foreign exchange reserves rose to a record high last month as the dollar got a little weaker, which boosted the value of the country's holdings in other currencies. The Bank of Korea says reserves amounted to some $458 billion, up nearly $4.6 billion on month. It attributed the rise to an increase in revenue from foreign currency assets, as well as deposits at financial institutions. As of the end of June, South Korea's FX reserves were the 8th largest in the world, having risen one spot since April. For many people visiting South Korea, one of the main draws is Korean cosmetics and the wider trend they call K-beauty. For these visitors, the city of Seoul has announced that it's developing a beauty road that'll guide people along a route in the city, passing by restaurants, beauty salons, and other attractions. The city says it's working on the project with the popular YouTuber Risabae, who has a huge K-beauty following and who's been appointed the city's beauty creator ambassador. The city is accepting proposals for the K-beauty road online at seoulbeautyroad.com. Risabae will announce the results next month on her YouTube channel. The South Korean stock market's been seeing one big IPO after another. These new issues have been consistently oversubscribed by retail investors at a ratio sometimes more than 1,000 to 1. More huge IPOs are just around the corner, one this Friday and another one next week, though some are calling into question whether valuations in some cases are way out of balance. For more on this, we have in the studio today our very own Ji-young. Good to have you, Ji-young.
Good afternoon.
Well, as I was just saying, we've got another blockbuster IPO coming up in Korea this Friday, August 6th, and that is Korea's only internet-only bank, Kakao Bank. And it seems that bidding for these shares, like many others, is fierce, but not quite as much as before.
Right. Many investors raced to get their hands on shares of Kakao Bank during the two-day subscription period last Monday and Tuesday, and some 1.9 million people bid for shares, and they poured in some $50 billion into retail orders. Submitted orders came to around 183 times the amount of stocks made available.
I deposited 100 million won because the company looked promising. When Kakao Bank first opened, it drew lots of attention. And I believe the number of accounts is currently the largest among local mobile banks.
Although the competition was high, the response it got from retail investors was not as hot as previous IPOs. The amount of subscription deposits made was the fifth largest for a local IPO, but was far less than those of other big-name companies that went public earlier this year, including SKI Technology and SK Bioscience. Kakao Bank has priced some 65.45 million new shares at around $34 each. That is at the high end of its proposed price range for its initial public offering. But
well, Ji-young, according to the valuation, as you just described it, this has led to some controversy because that would make it one of Korea's biggest financial institutions, even though Kakao Bank, by definition, has no brick-and-mortar stores.
That's right, Devin. Some say that IPO price of Kakao Bank is overvalued. That's because a relatively small venture in terms of asset size and earnings would become one of the largest financial institutions in the country right after listing. Experts say as the price is overvalued, Kakao Bank is unlikely to see the dramatic price rises that previous IPOs saw in the first days on the Kospi.
Since last year, there was a high demand in shares for IPOs and record high deposits were gathered. This triggered companies going public to set the IPO price aggressively. This time, the market is expected to be colder than before. Although there's high chance that the opening price will be higher than the IPO price, it is unlikely that it'll lead to a dramatic price jump.
Controversy over the IPO price is also the case for one of South Korea's biggest game makers, Krafton. The two-day public subscription for the game developer behind global blockbuster PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds ended yesterday, but the sales of shares were rather disappointing. Orders came to nearly 8 times the amount of shares made available, significantly lower than Kakao Bank, which had 183 orders per share, or Kakao Games with 1,525 orders per share. Also, deposits taken for Krafton amounted to only about $4.4 billion.
I didn't participate in the subscription for Krafton because of the relatively low competition rate among institutional investors. Also, I thought the IPO price is much higher than its truth worth.
Ahead of its debut on the benchmark Kospi next Tuesday, Krafton has priced some 5.6 million new shares at 498,000 won, or around $432 each. Some critics say the shares are overpriced because they put Krafton's valuation at around $21 billion, which is more than NCSoft, the biggest game developer listed in South Korea.
The biggest reason for the overvaluation is that 90% of its sales are coming from only one game, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. I encourage people to sell the shares as soon as the market starts on the first day of going public because the price is overvalued.
So, Ji-young, while demand is still quite high, though maybe not as high for some of the newer IPOs, we haven't seen the kind of crowds going to the brokerage houses to try and get shares as we were seeing before. Most of the transactions are being done online.
That's right. Following the application of level 4 social distancing measures in the capital area, some brokerage houses limited the number of customers that can enter. This is unlike the IPOs of SK Bioscience and others when brokerages had people lining up to make accounts so they could join in the frenzy. A branch manager of a securities brokerage house says about 70% of bids are being made online.
The number of customers who are actually visiting has decreased compared to the past. This is due to the pandemic, as well as retail investors not being able to submit multiple applications at different brokerage houses, unlike past subscriptions.
So, Jiyoung, you've told us about a few IPOs, Kakao Bank, Krafton, and a few others. What are some other IPOs coming up in the near future?
One of the companies that's receiving a lot of attention is Kakao Pay, South Korea's largest online payment service with 36 million users. It was originally set to start its public subscription today, but was delayed after the financial watchdog demanded that it corrected its filing and revised subscription price ranges. It plans to go public in the second half of this year. Kakao Mobility, the transportation services unit of Korea's dominant chat app operator Kakao, also plans to go public within months.
One of the most anticipated mega IPOs would be LG Energy Solution, a spin-off from LG Chem. As the electric car market is growing, the battery market will also expand.
He also mentioned some other IT companies that are now trading over the counter but will go public soon. Those include e-commerce platform market Curly, online fashion shop Mushinsa, the accommodation booking platform Yanorja, and Viva Republica, which runs Korea's largest fintech startup Toss. Shares of these companies are unlisted, but they've been rising in price with IPOs expected in the next year or so.
Well, Jiyoung, we'll be watching that. And of course, we don't give financial advice on this program, but I think your reporting today will at least help people think about some of these things as they decide what to do in this market. Thank you for your thorough reporting today.
Thank you for having me.
This morning at the Olympics, the South Korean women beat Turkey in volleyball to advance to the semifinal. It was a nail-biter going into 5 sets, and captain Kim Yeon-kyung was the one who spiked the match point to seal the win. In the semifinal on Friday, Korea will play either Brazil or Russia, whichever side wins their match. A medal is within reach for Korea, and fans are hoping they get one since this is likely the last chance for the team's star Kim Yeon-kyung. They did better than expected in the group stage, beating Japan and the Dominican Republic on the way to the quarterfinal. Also at the Olympics today, women's golf has begun, and that's a sport in which Korea has dominated at the professional level. 4 South Koreans are competing this time. They include the reigning Olympic champion Park In-bi, who finished the first round at 2 under par to put her in 7th place, tied with Kim Se-young and several others. Ahead of them is world number 2 ranked Ko Jin-young, who's tied for 4th place at 3 under par. Not far behind is their compatriot Kim Hyo-ju, tied at 16th place. Currently at the top of the board is Sweden's Magdalene Sagström at 5 under par. The second round begins tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. Korea time. And when Team Korea competes internationally, bars and other venues can normally rely on big crowds to cheer them on. That's not been possible for this Olympics, but fans are still cheering from the comfort of what they call their home stadiums. Lee Kyung-eun has this report.
Stadiums and fan zones are quiet this Olympics due to COVID-19. But in South Korea, the spirit of the games is still alive, with people taking their cheers to their kitchens and living rooms. Because here, they can show their support however they want, like chanting without the need for a mask. And eating and drinking together with family members. For children stuck indoors, watching the Olympics has given them something fresh to do at home.
Honestly, before the Olympics, it's been really dull. But now she gets so excited watching the games that she has made the cheering horn herself. I can feel she's motivated, and the whole house is full of energy, too.
Outside, with group cheering now banned due to private gathering rules, watching the games has become distant and quiet. But amid COVID-19, watching the Olympics has given some people an even greater sense of excitement and catharsis.
I've been pretty depressed recently, but the Olympics are like real-life movies. Korea's baseball team got a last-minute victory, and the volleyball team showed unbending fighting spirit. All this gives so much energy.
It's been all too repetitive, but now I'm checking the Olympic schedules, and having something to look forward to gives me the excitement that I've been lacking.
Even though it's not been a typical Olympics, after the past year and a half, at least the games have given us something to cheer about. 이경은, Arirang News.
South Korea reported over 1,700 new coronavirus cases today, the figure rising as it usually does as we get later in the week, and it reflects more testing. In the last week of July, the more transmissible Delta variant was accounting for more than 60% of the cases, compared to a month earlier when it was just 10%. The government will announce on Friday whether the distancing rules will be changed, but the ban on more than 2 people gathering after 6 p.m. is not expected to change. Choi Min-jung reports.
South Korea on Wednesday reported 1,725 new COVID-19 cases, up by more than 500 from the day before. Of Wednesday's cases, all but 61 were locally transmitted. Non-capital regions reported almost 630 cases, the highest number since the fourth wave broke out. This comes as more people are traveling across the nation during the summer vacation period.
The amount of people moving in the metropolitan area increased by 0.8% from the previous week, so there is no significant change. However, it is serious outside the capital as the number of people moving increased by 6.4%. These areas have been seeing an increase for the third week in a row.
Authorities are also voicing concerns over the highly transmissible Delta variant. In the last week of July, the Delta variant was detected in 62% of all cases. This is up by more than 13% compared to the week before. It is also a huge jump compared to the last week of June, when it only accounted for 10% of cases. Making matters worse, the Delta Plus variant has been detected in 2 cases in the country so far. In light of this, the government on Friday will be announcing any changes to social distancing restrictions, which will be effective from next week. Prime Minister Kim Boo-kyum on Wednesday said the government will monitor the situation closely for the next 2 days before deciding on whether to readjust the current restriction levels. The government added there is no plan to change the ban on gatherings of more than 2 people after 6 p.m. under the highest level 4. Currently, the Greater Seoul area is under the strictest level, while most areas outside the capital are under level 3. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Vaccine booking starts tonight for certain priority groups of people aged 18 to 49 who are living outside the Greater Seoul area. This is for around 2 million people deemed to be either an essential worker, a member of a socially vulnerable group, or working a job considered high risk. Reservations for people in this age group more broadly will start next week. Kim Yeon-sung has the details.
Those aged between 18 and 49 who are in priority groups and are living outside the Greater Seoul area can book their COVID-19 vaccine from 8 p.m. on Wednesday. Local governments have given priority to roughly 2 million people. These include essential workers like delivery staff and street cleaners, the underprivileged like the handicapped and migrant workers, and those who work in high-risk facilities like singing rooms and PC rooms. The capital area allowed bookings for those groups on Tuesday evening, and from Thursday, people from all regions will be able to book their first shot. The government has staggered bookings according to region to prevent people from overwhelming the vaccine reservation system. And from next Monday, vaccine bookings will start for the remaining 17 million people between the ages 18 and 49. The day that they can use the booking system is based on their birthdays. For example, those whose birthday ends with 9 can reserve the vaccines on August 9th. This comes as South Korea on Tuesday inoculated close to 219,000 people. 39.3% of the population have now received at least one dose of the vaccine. Health authorities on Wednesday showed confidence in vaccine supplies and the reservation system.
Today, 1,188,000 doses of AstraZeneca and 2,530,000 doses of Pfizer will come into the country. Our vaccine reservation system is also continuously improving.
Health authorities also said that they're close to striking a deal for 50 million more doses of COVID vaccines, mostly mRNA, for next year. Kim Hyun-sung, Arirang News.
Over the past 2 months, the United States says it's donated more than 110 million doses of coronavirus vaccines to other countries. According to the White House, that's more than every other country combined, and it says it's sending more in the coming weeks. Lee Sung-jae reports.
According to the White House Tuesday, the U.S. has donated more than 110 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines to more than 60 countries over the past 2 months. Calling the donations a major milestone in the fight against the pandemic, the White House said it's a fulfillment of President Biden's promise and a significant down payment on hundreds of millions more doses that the U.S. will deliver in the coming weeks. In addition, the U.S. will ship 500 million doses of Pfizer's vaccine to 100 lower-income countries in late August. Of the 110 million doses Washington has donated, the majority were shared via COVAX, an international program aimed at assisting developing countries access COVID-19 vaccines. Part of them also went to South Korea this year, when over 1 million doses of Johnson & Johnson's vaccine were sent as a gift following the summit between Presidents Moon Jae-in and Biden in May. But Biden's gift to its Asian ally also came as he unveiled his administration's plans to distribute 25 million surplus doses across the globe, including 6 million shared among South Korea, Mexico, Canada, and other partner nations, as well as UN frontline workers. The Biden administration has since upped its pledge to at least 80 million COVID-19 vaccine doses worldwide, with advocates saying the U.S. could share even more moving forward. The donation is all the more crucial in the global fight against the pandemic, as countries are racing to inoculate their citizens with the rise of Delta variants globally. Last Thursday, President Biden said the U.S. was sharing doses to end the pandemic, which has killed over 3.7 million people worldwide, not to extract political power. Lee Sung-jae, Arirang News.
The U.S. Department of Defense has once again made clear that any decision on the upcoming military exercises with South Korea, set for mid-August, will be the result of coordination between the two allies. This comes as North Korea, as usual, demands that they be canceled, and as the regime appears to be opening back up for talks. Our Kim Da-mi reports.
The Pentagon reiterated on Tuesday that any decision on these hard Washington military drills will be made jointly by the allies. Highlighting Washington's commitment to the alliance and joint security on the Korean Peninsula, Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby said that everything the U.S. does from a military perspective is done in close coordination with its South Korean allies. While recognizing the North's recent warning to call off the drills, Kirby said nothing has changed on Washington's military readiness to defend the Korean Peninsula against the threats. Kirby also said that Seoul has not requested Washington to consider suspending the drills. There has been speculation the allies might scale down, if not call off, the joint exercise set for mid-August in a bid to encourage inter-Korean talks. Also on Tuesday, the U.S. said its offer of unconditional talks with North Korea whenever and wherever is still valid. When asked if Washington is in contact with Pyongyang, State Department spokesperson Ned Price said the U.S. has reached out but added there's nothing to share right now. While underscoring that it's up to the regime to respond positively, Price once again showed support for inter-Korean dialogue and welcomed the recent restoration of the two Koreas' communication lines. He then added that diplomacy and dialogue are essential to achieving complete denuclearization and permanent peace on the Korean Peninsula. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
A little rain the past few days has helped cool things off in Korea, but now the heat is back and so is the humidity. Heat wave advisories have been issued for almost the entire country, with the average high today above 35 degrees Celsius. Water temperatures along most of the nation's coast are high too, some above 28 degrees, which is a threat to fish stocks. The heat's been affecting the health of people too, with more than 1,000 heat-related illnesses reported this summer, which is more than double the number last year. The health authorities say UV rays are very strong right now and are urging people to avoid spending time outside, especially from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And that brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.